Yo, you are here with the MCW Tag Team Champions, Rush Hour, and that makes Showtime! Dion Epps
and Hot Boy Tommy Seto.
And you're watching O Face Wrestling.
That's right. Oh, Face Wrestling. Listen to the podcast. Listen. They are Dark Side approved. Howden approves it. Oh, Face Wrestling. I'll be listening. Will you?
Come and listen to O Face Wrestling Podcast with your favorite Siren the Voodoo Doll, aka Nina Monet.
I'm the one-eyed, thick-thighed woad, and you're watching O Face Wrestling.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on O Face Wrestling. This is your host JT, and today I am joined by O Face team member Bree.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today, Bree. So this is your third time on the show. Last time when we did that WrestleMania predictions, and then of course the Ember Moon Spotlight episode.
Mm-hmm.
So
today, because we did one with
with Christy. What was that one?
That
was the empty arena situation. So yeah, your fourth time. I totally forgot about that episode.
Yeah, dude, it's almost like I'm a veteran at this point.
Because I feel like because we talked about that whole basically the same thing on last night's episode when we guested on Heel Heat podcast. I think I might have blended them in together in my mind. But
yeah,
pretty much the same thing. I feel like, other than minus the roster cuts and all that kind of stuff. But today we're talking about an episode that I'm extremely excited about. We kind of been talking about this for a few months now. I think I reached out to you like 2 or 3 months ago about doing this. We're doing a Lacey Lane, aka Kayden Carter spotlight episode. And the reason I just don't straight up call her Kayden Carter because she's only been known as Kayden Carter for a few months now on in NXT because I don't know if Lacey Lane is her actual legit birth name.
It's not. Her name is actually Alyssa.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, so, but she was known as Lacey Lane on the independent circuit. And then when she first signed with WWE and, was a part of the Mae Young Classic and all, she was Lacey Lane. So I just naturally still call her Lacey Lane. And I feel more, I like saying that. It just feels more natural to me. Like I called Ember Moon Athena for the longest time. So it comes natural, but I'm also going to mention Kayden Carter because some people actually don't know her as Lacey Lane. But yeah, like I mentioned, we've been talking about this for a few months now, and I've been really wanting to do this because I am a huge Kayden Carter fan. And I feel like she has all the talent in the world, and she deserves a spotlight. Because guess what? I've only seen one other podcast actually do a spotlight video on her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
One?
Only one. I'm sure there's others. I've just only come across one. I haven't actually looked at the same time, but, I see spotlight videos all the time for Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey and all these other women, and I'm like, where's the love for Kayden Carter, so, and she's actually like top 5 for me too. Like she's really been climbing the ranks, and I just really want to talk about her. And hopefully one day actually have her on the show. I've actually tweeted her. I don't know if she even seen the tweet, but I would love to have her. She's one of the, top 3 that I want on the show one day, up there with Ember Moon and Holiday. Yeah. Pretty cool.
We can only hope.
Hopefully she actually sees this too. That would be, really dope.
Really cool.
And it sucks because normally when we do spotlight episodes, I wear, their shirts, their merch. Well, she doesn't have any merch or anything for WWE yet. I'm sure she probably has some from the, when she was on the Indies.
Right.
So
I don't think she has any merch. That's very interesting that you brought up that.
She might have some old merch from back in the day. So if by chance Kayden Carter is watching this episode, if you still have any old shirts or some 8x10s, just DM me.
Send them in my way.
Because I've been on like a little, you don't see nothing.
Yeah, I don't actually see, and you know what, it's difficult because, Yeah, 'cause she shows up as Kayden. I don't see her on the actual website.
I mean, she's been getting more TV time lately, so I think it's only a matter of time before they just bring out some shirts.
Yeah, it
But
could be a
like,
matter of time.
yeah. But if, like
The
I
more
said,
time she gets,
if she's seeing this episode and she wants to sell me some old, Lacey Lane shirts from the Indies, I'm more than happy to buy it, or 8x10s or whatever.
how cool would that be if you got one from her?
I know. I'll just randomly get a DM, the day of posting this episode. So.
Right.
So let's start with this. Let's educate some of our listeners a little bit about, Kayden Carter and what we've learned from her. So let's start with you. So what did you dig up about Kayden Carter?
So, I think the first time that I actually saw her on TV, basically kind of give some backstory, was she had a match with Bianca back in December of last year, and that was kind of the first time that I think me and my boyfriend had seen her on TV. And like most folks that we kind of see come in and out of NXT or in and out of Raw, who may have been like just there as like, a filling in jobber type of situation. We're just looking up people that we see because sometimes people come back and then they make a bigger splash and so on and so forth. So looked her up and saw that she went to Shaw University, which if anyone watches this podcast is from Raleigh, you know where that is. It's in downtown. So it's actually really cool to, know that someone like used to live in your state is someone who's like famous or been a part of the wrestling scene, is a part of your country or part of your state. It really does kind of do a lot for you as a fan, at least for me personally. The things that I know about her is I know that when we had you talked about doing the podcast, funny story, because you and me DM'd about it, and you were like, hey, you want to do a Lacey podcast? And I was like, why would we do a Lacey podcast? Not to say that I don't like Southern Belle Lacey, but I was just like, this is so random, and it's like, I don't really know much about Lacey. He was like, no, that's Kayden. And I was like, I had no idea that was her name. So now I'm even in a deeper rabbit hole because I'm thinking you want to have a whole podcast about Lacey Evans. And I was like, wait, I thought her name was Lacey Evans. He was like, no, that's Kayden Carter. So apparently WWE made her change her name at some point. So Lacey is a Filipino American woman of color who trained at the Team 3D Academy of Professional Wrestling, which I believe has 4 TNA alumni, and including her, 3 WWE alumni, one being, I think, a referee. And she has a lucha strong style with, if you kind of know what that is, Antonio Inoki. I know I've pronounced his name wrong, but New Japan's, I think he was his vice president, it's still their vice president, basically calls this like wrestling as a combat sport. So you'll see a lot of kicks and strikes. It incorporates a lot of the martial arts disciplines, and it's big on submissions. So it's something that you'll see when you're watching Kayden is she put people in submissions, people put her in submissions, and I think that kind of, calls back to that lucha strong style. It's similar to what Shinsuke Nakamura kind of brought to WWE. And she mentioned in an interview that some of her colleagues before she went to Mexico, to give some backstory on that in a minute, told her that lucha libre style would be a nice little addition to her skills as a wrestler. So the rest is history. So reason why she went to Mexico was that she had a tryout with the WWE Performance Center in February of 2017. And she was offered a position, or she was offered a contract, and then unfortunately, they have to do examinations and found out she had arthritis in her knee. And basically at that point, they cannot take you as a wrestler if you're not in like tip-top shape, or at least at that point they could not. And I'm sure that was really devastating for her because, trying to be a wrestler, and if you want to do therapy to strengthen your knee, I mean, that takes months of work. I think she said it was about 4 months of very hard work that she's not doing jobs. She's, maybe passing up on certain opportunities because, at the WWE is kind of like, that's the big behemoth, and you once you get a contract from them or you have an opportunity, I mean, it's something that you can go for. After I think she did her initial rehabilitation, she went to join, I gotta remember the name of it, but it was like something Lucha Libre. It's a professional wrestling company in Mexico, and
Is it
held
AAA?
their
I know there's Lucha Underground and there's AAA that are like.
I don't think
AAA is
it's
the popular
AAA.
one.
I want to say that it's where
They were both reaching for our phone to find us. The Crash Lucha.
That's what it was. I was like, I know it's not AAA, even though they did mention it. But she went and did work and for that company and won their women's title, which was pretty big. So, as it seems, when you have people that are in the indies that are winning a lot of championships and making a lot of splashes in different promotions, WWE does pay attention to that. So she was a part of Pro Wrestling 2.0, Ignite Wrestling, American Combat Wrestling, Full Throttle Wrestling, Go Wrestle, Platinum Pro, and Major League Wrestling. And I think a few of those have some WWE alumni as well. So went back, did another, audition for the Performance Center. And at that point, she was accepted to be a part of the NXT and went on her tour. And, the rest is history. I think she had, I'm sure it was pretty devastating to see, that opportunity for WWE kind of like flash before your eyes. But, her determination to get back in the ring and get back fighting obviously shows through her wrestling, shows through her life. She's a very persevering lady, and rehabbed herself, to do WWE again. And some people may have not have done that. And, then took part in the Mae Young Classic and, has been on TV since 2008 up until about, around this time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I thought she had a match, or she has a match tonight. It's like a Wednesday. So she's getting a lot more TV time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think more people are watching, and that's a really good, cool thing for, this 5'2" basketball player that came from Florida and went to college in North Carolina. It's very, very interesting to always look back on the history of people and how they've gotten from where they were to where they are now.
Oh yeah. And I kind of want to see like WWE start like making more documentaries about like wrestlers like this on their network, like wrestlers who started out from the indies. Like I want to learn more about their story and stuff like that. Like, Kayden Carter being one of them. Like I would love for them to do a documentary on her. Ember Moon, just wrestlers like, because the thing is though, a lot of these wrestlers who come from the indie circuit, people don't understand how hard it is. Like I don't know. Every promotion is different on how much they pay you, but I've seen when I heard Ember Moon's story, she was getting paid like $15 a match. Like
it's terrible pay.
Wrestlers will drive like 4 or 5 hours to go make $15, wrestle a match, come home. Like it's crazy, and like that is determination and dedication. Like you are working your butt off for little pay. You're probably not getting much sleep. God knows what time you have to wake up for work the next day, and you don't know where it's going to go. It's not guaranteed. It is, because for the longest time, WWE was it. Like, there was Impact for a while, but I'm sure the pay there isn't nowhere near WWE. So it's like WWE was it, and and it ain't easy getting into WWE. I will say it is not easy, especially like for the women, because there's less women than men in the company. And
Mm-hmm.
longest time they were, pretty judgmental with, the way the female women looked and stuff like that. And that's a point I want to make about Kayden Carter too. Um, when I first noticed her, because I feel kind of ashamed that I did not hear about her until she signed with WWE. Because, like I mentioned before the recording, I'm a big fan of women's wrestling on the independent circuit, and how she, slipped by without me noticing. I don't know. I think also another thing I mentioned, she was only like really wrestling on the indies for like 2 years. So she wasn't one of those wrestlers who's been there for 5+ years, who's really kind of made a lot of noise and all. But the thing is, when I first saw her, the thing that stood out was her look. She has, the hair and then all the tattoos. And that's the thing is, you don't see many women in WWE with covered in tattoos like that. You don't. And that really stood out to me because I like tattoos, and I think her tattoos are so dope.
Me too.
And it's like, I remember thinking, I'm like, I remember being like really impressed and really happy. I'm like, I can't believe WWE signed someone like this. But at the same time, I'm like, they really did this. Like, I would have never known they would really, go for that, because they've been a lot more diverse with, wrestlers they brought in the past. Like, Aleister Black has a lot of tattoos too, but I've never seen him do that with a female, and I like that. And I really hope that, someone like Kayden Carter, like, I really hope that this opens doors for other women down the road, other women who have these unique looks and, all the tattoos and piercings and stuff like that. Like, I really hope that, this can really lead to other women getting opportunities. And I think that Kayden Carter can be the one to carry the torch and, lead the way, because we've seen WWE come a long way from, the different kind of women. Before it was the models, the blondes, and then you started seeing like women like Paige who have like the goth look, and then, stuff like that. Now we're seeing, someone who's, coming in with all these tattoos and all this kind of stuff, and it stands out and in a good way.
Right.
Some facts I want to go over about her before I kind of start talking more in detail about, like, when I became a fan of her. So just like you, I found the Team 3D thing. I thought that was pretty cool that she, trained at the Team 3D Academy. I know it's a pretty established, place to train. Also, this was a really cool thing I learned about her. Her first public match was against Trish Adora, who is a wrestler I've seen wrestle twice, and I've met her twice. I love Trish. She is awesome. And when I met her for the first time, I asked her in person about, coming to the show, and she said, yeah. And we haven't set anything up yet, but she's someone who's most likely going to be on the show sometime in the future. And, one of my favorite indie wrestlers who actually lives, in the same state of me too. So that, I think that's a really, cool thing. And then, like you mentioned, I'm with WWE in 2018, and she was a part of the Mae Young Classic, and she made it all the way to the third round, which is very impressive.
Right.
That really shows what they, thought of her. Like, she had, I remember the announcers, bringing up the Cinderella story thing with her, because she's smaller. She's not, the tallest, strongest, the biggest, but she's so quick and athletic. And I think it was her first match was against, this one, what was it? Vanessa Craven. And she was like, bigger, taller, female, who had that kind of like, giant kind of feel to her. And she, like, overcame it. And it was like kind of like the David versus Goliath kind of thing. And that's the first time I saw her wrestling. I was just like, wow, like, I want to see more of this chick. Like, and then just in time, I've seen her, in NXT a few times. I remember the first time I saw her in NXT was one of the early episodes when they started, airing on USA. She had a match against Rhea Ripley. I remember getting really excited because I heard her theme. She has that really cool, it's like the tribal kind of intro.
Yeah. And can't know if she changed her intro yet, but I actually had forgotten about the match with Rhea, and
That was in like October, November, something like that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember being really excited too, because I remember I yelled out Lacey Lane, and my wife's like, "It says Kayden Carter." I'm like, this is Lacey Lane, but it was a great moment. It does kind of stink that pretty much all her matches are losses, but it just still is always an exciting moment for me to see her on TV, because it's just she always has those moments where she has that offense, and like you mentioned, she has that lucha libre kind of strong style, and she's always must watch. Like it's very common for me during NXT, Raw, SmackDown, whatever, to be live tweeting and talking to all my friends about what's going on. But when she's on, I put the phone to the side, and I'm like, I want to see this, because she's so quick, and wrestlers like that, it doesn't take much time for you to to miss something big with her and all that. But I mean, dang, just like I said, just like it's crazy like how much I like her and how she's slipped into like my top 5, and she's only had a little bit of exposure on TV, and you mentioned that we're starting to see more and more of her. She's been wrestling like once or twice on Raw, which is a big deal. We're seeing her more in NXT. She had that feud with Chelsea Green, so that's really showing something. So kind of like, what do you think could be in her future? Like, what do you want to see from her down the road?
So in terms of future, so as you've mentioned, we both mentioned that she has a very her style is very fast. It could take you one quick second to miss something big with her, because a lot of what really makes her special and really makes her moveset special is that it's you could miss a career changing move with her very, and it's like that's why you're like, I have to put my phone down and like look at the screen because I can miss something. So I totally understand that with her. And personally for me, that fast, the hits, it's almost like I could see her in a Extreme Rules Hell in a Cell type of pay-per-view. Like, I definitely think she's pay-per-view material. I think she's someone that could hold up in a really big main event. Even if it was for like Raw or for SmackDown or for NXT, but even for a pay-per-view, like I would 100% stop what I'm doing and watch that. Like, she definitely has more than just filler talent. Yeah, no one can really take that away from her. I could see WWE or like NXT giving her this like Street Fighter, Tekken, MMA kind of character. I think that would really work well with her look and her style of wrestling. I think I would like to see her embody a character and I feel like that kind of opens the door to storylines and feuds, because at that point, you have other people that have their storylines and their characters and their feuds, and it makes it easier for you to start being creative with people instead of just kind of like, oh, here's, Ember Moon with her. I hate saying gimmick because it has a really bad annotation, but like when you're finding someone that kind of doesn't have that, it does feel as if it's kind of a filler type of deal. So if she's given a character of some sort, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a character, you just be kind of an extension of herself, not a lie, more of, I'm this fighter, I'm this quick, person. When you get in the ring with me, like, you're going to sweat, you're going to, I'm going to tire you out. I feel like her style meshes well with that kind of attitude. And, there's no storyline or characteristic for her yet. And, that's all the more better to kind of really discuss her future. So, like, for example, a dream match of mine, because this is easy. Like, I like coming up with dream matches for people like this because it's kind of like working with a blank slate. Would be kind of like Shayna versus Kayden. I would watch that. Like, I would watch the hell out of that, like 100%, because both of them, Shayna's fast. She has the MMA background. Kayden's fast. She has like the lucha. So it's like that kind of clash of styles in a way. And Shayna's very strong. Shayna can't. That's the kind of match that Kayden can get pushed up really high with. Going back to like my Hell in a Cell idea, I could see her fighting Ember Moon. And part of the reason why is because like I could see her doing a I think it would be really cool to see a Hell in a Cell match between the two of them, like a Hell in a Cell Moon at midnight kind of thing, where they like light the stage all like blue, kind of like, I guess, trying to imitate Moonlight. And it's kind of like one of those fantasy story fights type of thing, kind of going back to like that video game characteristics that they give her. And even with those two matches, like, those are two people, Ember and Shayna, that both could give her that push that she needs. Like, I've always mentioned time and time again that WWE, they push who they want to push. They'll put people with the right folks to get them to where they need to be. They'll train them to do their promos. Like, WWE can push stars, but it's who they want to push at the time. So, like, if they really wanted to, they could make Kayden fairly big on any brand. And if she was to stay brands, let's say that she, did what Bianca Belair did, go to Raw, or Shayna moves Raw just like to have that fight with Becky. I would like to see someone move over to the blue brand. So like moving over to SmackDown, because we know NXT isn't developmental, and I have no issues to stay with NXT, but like, and built a career there. If she was like on SmackDown, I could see her fighting Sasha. I could see her fighting like someone like Nikki. And she could kind of be that person that could switch between the two for the blue brand, because we've had some people go for like NXT, the red brand. So in terms of her future, I can, the sky's really the limit. I really can't say why they haven't built her, because one, I mean, she's a beautiful woman, gorgeous. She's athletic, she's talented. I mean, she's got a very alternative look. And especially like for a woman of color who's embodied that kind of alternative look, it's very different to see. And not that it doesn't exist in real life, but that representation is so, it can be rare. So, it's almost kind of like, I don't really know what the holdup is, because she has the stardom, she has the potential. I can't really say that I've seen any of like her promos, if she's done one. But I've seen her trash talking, and I mean, honestly, you can teach someone how to give a good promo. Everything there, Yeah. So what would you think? Like, if, let's say that like she, here's how we would push her. How would you push her? If she switched to brands, like, who would you want to see her fight?
Well, honestly, I think the best thing for her now is the tag team division, because, I mean, honestly, the NXT women division is so freaking stacked right now. I think she could stand out and do very well in it, but the tag division really needs, some more female tag teams, and she's best friends with Casey Katza. I can't pronounce her last name, the one from Ninja Warriors.
Yeah, I know.
Best friends. They've branded themselves as Team Ninja. They just never, from my knowledge, I don't think they've ever like teamed up on like televised, on NXT or anything like that. I think that would be the best thing, and I think that would be cool, because right now WWE is really high on NXT. We've seen NXT look very strong on the main roster shows. They dominated Survivor Series, Bianca, representing NXT, dominated the Women's Royal Rumble. We saw, the Women's Royal Rumble winner Charlotte Flair go for the NXT Women's title. They are really high on NXT, and it would not surprise me if, a female, a women's tag team from NXT, eventually came into the, the women's tag team title picture. And why not Kayden and Casey? I think they got something good, and what they're doing right now on social media and TikTok is smart. Me and Stephanie talk about it all the time. We are in the day and age of, social media and technology. If you're a wrestler and you want to get over, using social media is one of the smartest things to do. It is a good way to get yourself over, because if WWE isn't giving you TV time, you can make a name for yourself on social media and get yourself over that way, which can lead to WWE pushing you. Because guess what? Wrestlers have done that. I mean, I know Zack Ryder did that with YouTube years ago. It's
his YouTube channel.
Exactly. As a wrestler, you need to brand yourself, and social media is the best way to do it, because you could do it at your own expense. And if WWE isn't giving you TV time, you brand yourself on there and make a name for yourself, and get yourself an audience that way. And her and Casey, they've been doing it. And I love their TikTok videos. I think they're really entertaining, and I can see them as a tag team, going after the titles. I would have rather have been the Kabuki Warriors, but obviously I don't think that's going to be the case now. As a single star, there's 1,000,001 matches I would love to see Kayden in. Ember Moon being probably my top one, like you mentioned. I think she would definitely do really good in like a ladder match, like a Money in the Bank, ladder match, because of her, her high flying, skill set.
Dude, I had that in my notes. Literally had that same sentiment in my notes. Was for her to do like a ladder match, like kind of on the lines of what they did for
Mia Yim.
Takeover. Was it Takeover? And they did
They've done a few. They did do a women's ladder match. I don't think it was at Takeover though. It was on just an episode, because that was the one.
One of the NXT pay-per-views. I think it was like and the reason I remember it was because it was like we had the NXT pay-per-view, and then we had like a WWE pay-per-view that like the next day. It was like the Saturday and the Sunday, and like I cannot remember what it was, but I remember like the like something along that line of like, if she was doing a 3-way ladder match with like Mia Yim and like Rhea Ripley, like I would watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Like something like that. I'm definitely with you with like the ladder match.
Just imagine a ladder match between like Kayden, Ember, EO. You got to add some muscle in it to throw Shayna in there.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, and Naomi, of course. That would just be killer. Oh, Candice, you got to add Candice. And actually, speaking of that, Candice LeRae versus Kayden Carter, that would be awesome.
They fought before. They have fought before.
That's probably one of the episodes. I haven't been able to watch as much NXT as I wanted to.
It was in March. She had and honestly, I have to say I was a little kind of let down by it. And this is just my opinion. I know it's everyone has their opinion. I love Candice LeRae, by the way, so I don't think it was them, but they fought in March. And I don't know really how to feel about it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, because if you watch the match, and it's on YouTube, I think, it was very slow. It was clearly rehearsed. It was very much like Candice is trying to get a pin on Kayden around the end, and it's always like, for me, it didn't really showcase Kayden's abilities all the way that I think that I would have enjoyed seeing it. I didn't get my Kayden enjoyment. Maybe Candice was holding back. Who knows? That match ended with a submission with Candice submitting Kayden.
Yeah, you are right. It was March 25th. I pulled it up on YouTube. Yeah, that was the number one contenders ladder qualifying match. I remember missing that because I work early mornings on Thursday. I do remember the match happening now that you say that. But yeah, if they actually were given a good amount of time and, were allowed to do what they can do, that would be a stellar match.
Right.
I know this is, I don't want to say a long shot, but I would love to see WWE book Kayden in a feud with Charlotte and actually have her dethrone Charlotte as champion. Because the one thing is, they're turning all the top, wrestlers in NXT heel. Candice is heel now. Io's heel. Dakota's heel. Charlotte, she's giving me heel vibes. So I feel like whoever dethrones her will be a face.
Yeah, she's definitely not a face.
Yeah, she you could say she's black and white. She's in the middle right now, but the fact that they're putting Kayden on TV a little bit more makes me feel like, and she's losing too. It makes me feel like they could be doing that underdog story, because that's what they did with Bayley. She was losing a lot, and then she was out with the injury. She came back and just started winning, and then after Sasha, they could do something like that with Kayden. I mean, something. I just had that gut feeling that there's something, there. Like WWE is secretly low key, like really high on Kayden, and they do want to start pushing her.
Oh yeah, they're definitely not cold to her at all. Like, for her to have screen time, someone up there likes her.
Yeah.
And when she's in a match with people, like with Kayden versus Bianca, like that's one of my favorite matches. And even that she lost, it wasn't upsetting. It wasn't like it didn't feel like, to me, oh, it's another squash match or something. Even though she lost, she made Bianca look good. Like, she does not get in the ring and make anyone look bad or make herself look bad by just kind of being there and being a punching bag. She makes people look good. And I think, whoever told her to like add the lucha style to her set, I think is why she's where she is now. And getting that lukewarm thing, she needs her breakout moment. She needs that breakout match.
Exactly.
Could we see her take a championship, like take the belt off of Charlotte? Like, I mean, I feel like it can happen. And I think it's a good possibility if she continues on the path, and maybe like what you said, she leaves, comes back, and someone's worked with her on her promos, and she's totally different now. Like the Liv Morgan thing, maybe not
exactly. Well, not to that,
not that drastic, but the same concept. She went away, she can come back and win matches and go up against people.
Because that's one thing that you mentioned. You mentioned like the gimmicks and characters and all that kind of stuff. WWE is different than a lot of the other wrestling promotions out there. In order to be one of the top players in whatever division you're in, 9 times out of 10 it's someone with some kind of character, some kind of persona, because let's just face the fact, there's so many good wrestlers on that roster. We're in a day and age. This is, WWE in general has the most talented roster they've ever had. And their roster is so much more talented than the Attitude Era. But guess what? That era was more popular because you had the characters. You had Undertaker, Stone Cold, they all had some kind of persona, character, mic skills, all of that. And in WWE, it's proven that, you need to be well-rounded. You need to be able to cut promos. You need to have a character. We haven't been able to, see Kayden do any of that yet because they haven't, done it. So, I mean, for all we know, she could be the best promo in freaking business, and we just don't know yet. So I'm hoping that we kind of can see something like that, and I hope that if she doesn't, that she does develop some kind of character. You mentioned like some kind of like Tekken or something like that. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like the Fiend Bray Wyatt, where she has this costume and this, crazy kind of gimmick or anything like that. It could be simple, like AJ Styles is a perfect example. He doesn't have anything fancy on him or anything like that, but he can actually cut a promo. I never knew that because you didn't really see him do that too much. I don't remember him doing it in the little time that I watched Impact, but like it could be simple. just I think she has, from what we've seen, she has pretty much everything. I mean, she has the look. I love her look. She has the skills. I love her entrance too. I think her entrance is so badass looking. It's just like the question is, can she cut a promo? And that's the thing is too. The fans need to know about her. Like we want to know her motive and stuff like that and her story. And hopefully they start doing stuff like that with her because I feel like she can be one of the top players in the division. And like I mentioned, earlier in the video, or episode, I want her to be the one that carries that torch and who's someone who could be a role model too, because that's like a big deal. Like a lot of people, male and female, get shamed on for being, having tattoos and stuff like that. I mean, I have a relative that thinks tattoos are the most disgusting thing on the planet, and how dare someone do that to their body. Like people, and it's bullying. When people say stuff like that to other people, it's upsetting because no one likes to have anyone say anything negative about their appearance. And I feel like Kayden can be that hope and that give people the motivation, because that's how I look at Ember Moon. I dealt with bullying growing up, and finding out that she dealt with the same thing, I now idolize her, and I saw how she overcame that, and now look where she's at now. She's working for the biggest wrestling promotion on the planet, and that gives me motivation. Hey, I can get over it. I can overcome these things, because I mean, I'm not going to get too detailed in it because that's not relevant to this, Kayden Carter and all that. But yeah, like you would be surprised, when you can relate to a superstar, because wrestling fans, kids, teenagers, adults, we look up to the wrestlers as, heroes, idols, whatever you want to call it. And we need more people like this. We need more people that are more relatable, because John Cena's cool, but he's not necessarily relatable, because guess what? He's the perfect person. He's a good looking guy who's all muscular and big, that just kind of, it's I mean, I know a lot of kids love him and all that kind of stuff, but can you relate to him? That's the thing. How many people can relate to an Eva Marie? She's this good looking model, perfect looking female. We want, the people that we can relate to. And like I said, Kayden is beautiful. Like, she is really beautiful. Her eyes are just like, wow, like she's a very beautiful, but like I mentioned, she has that look that some people shame on, oh, tattoos, how dare they, kind of stuff like that. So I want her to be the one who can really, like, to be the role model, and to help give people hope, basically. And I feel like she's perfect for the NXT brand too. NXT is it. I consider it main roster now, but it's still its own separate entity, and it's a brand where wrestlers can flourish that wouldn't necessarily flourish on Raw or SmackDown, because at the end of the day, Raw and SmackDown has that mainstream audience, and what may be acceptable in NXT may not be acceptable amongst your mainstream audience. And it's sad that your mainstream audience doesn't necessarily look at some of these really talented wrestlers like we do. And I've seen plenty of really talented wrestlers, male and female, succeed in NXT, but then come to the main roster and they just could not relate with your mainstream fans. So
Don't move brands sometimes, because I do think that NXT is like the future. Like that, it's very futuristic in the sense of like the people that may not be conventionally attractive or someone that you watch. It does give them a platform to be themselves and to be relatable to upcoming people like me, people like you, folks that are younger than us. People who have tattoos and who may fall out of that realm of what's accepted among society, that they can look at someone like Kayden and be like, I can do what I want. Like, she has tattoos and she has like the long blonde locks, she beautiful eyes, like she's not what people consider America's standard of beauty, but she's still beautiful. Like if she, where I'm from, she could have any man she wanted, any man. So it's there is a part of society that doesn't adhere to Raw's idea of what's successful and beautiful. They don't look at John Cena and think me and him can have something in common. It's
Yeah.
I feel like for me, I would be, I feel like I would be invested more in people that I can relate to, and a lot of them seem to come out of NXT. And you sometimes I think where we're moving is that people like Kayden don't need to move to Raw or don't need to move to SmackDown unless they wanted to, just to have that level of notoriety, fame, and what have you. Which is what it is. And I think that anyone can build a really successful career at NXT. I think that's very much possible. She's definitely a good example of that, and continue to hold that actual role model status, that inspiration, that person to look up to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I really liked how you worded everything. I think you did it a lot better than what I said. But I mean, it's true. Like, a lot of my favorites have come from NXT too. And I like, at the end of the day, like you said, if a wrestler goes to NXT, or from NXT to Raw or SmackDown, they get more exposure. And I think a lot of these NXT stars do it. Like, I would love the Undisputed Era to be on Raw or SmackDown and get more of a mainstream, audience, to witness these guys and give these guys, more attention. And I definitely do want to see that, but I also want to see NXT as a brand get more mainstream attention, So it gets, because at the end of the day, like, I always want NXT to be what it is, just because it's now live on the USA Network every Wednesday. I don't want WWE to turn it into a mainstream show. I want it to still be that underground, show that is catered to your hardcore fans. But at the same time, it's like, you do want it to get that mainstream attention too, because guess what? It deserves it. Same thing with AEW, which is, it's kind of tough because since they're going head to head, it's like, there's only so many wrestling fans out there, and it's, kind of difficult to watch both. But it's like, there's all these great wrestlers, and it's like, I want the mainstream audience to actually give, NXT and AEW more of a chance, so they can really, because they can see what we see, because a lot of people just tend to just look at these wrestlers and they're like, because I've seen it plenty of times. I've heard people say, oh, well, the men, they have to be big and strong, and the women, they have to be good looking and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, how about if you actually watch NXT? Because I've heard plenty of stories, on podcasts and all that, of people having, relatives and friends watch NXT, and that was their first time watching wrestling in years, and they actually got back into it because of NXT. Like, I think in time, it will start becoming more successful. I think what WWE's doing is really smart. Like, I mentioned, they're making NXT look very strong on pay-per-views. Like, we saw NXT featured in Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. I'm assuming they're going to do something at SummerSlam as well. It's starting to get more eyeballs on the product, and it's to the point where NXT can be itself, and these wrestlers and the brand itself can get that mainstream exposure. Because, like you said, NXT is the future. I think what they're doing in NXT will help build the future. And we can kind of maybe start seeing Raw or SmackDown kind of start getting more similar to NXT. But then we'll just have to kind of see, because I do feel like, I do like the idea of all three brands having their own separate identity. But I know at one point it seemed like SmackDown was kind of getting more into the sports entertainment kind of thing. Like, Cain Velasquez showed up there, stuff like that. If it's a way for it all to be different, because if Raw, SmackDown, and NXT were the same thing, we're getting the same thing 3 times a week. So, I mean, if NXT stays kind of what it is, and then everything else has its own identity.
Yeah,
But,
it's going to continue to evolve. I hope that it does. And, to take it maybe a step further, to kind of, we could probably see more different things tried out again, or new things that haven't been done before, because NXT and things like AEW are getting more exposure, because they are, I think, to some degree catering a little bit more to both sides of the demographic, people that are younger who may be a little more progressive in the sense of how they view beauty and talent and what have you, and the folks that kind of went away from wrestling for a while to adult, and they're coming back and seeing what NXT is doing, coming back and seeing what AEW is doing, and liking both products. And it's like the new age of wrestling. And to kind of bring it back to Kayden a little bit, would be kind of thinking of I was watching her match with Leah Rush, and that was an intergender match, and it got me kind of thinking of, what if WWE or NXT brought that to their brands. And granted, it's very controversial about when fighting men and whatnot. I personally believe that you have two folks that are athletic, maybe of different genders, but we do know that WWE and NXT are scripted to some degree, so you can effectively control the environment so that it is fair to a degree. And I think that there's a good way that can be done. And so I'm thinking, with us progressing maybe to that point, Kayden has already shown us that she can be up there with the guys as well as the women.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, could she be someone that if they brought mixed gender matches, could she be top of that? Because she has shown us that she can with Leo Rush, but also adding to that PG family friendly thing that WWE's trying to really go for and continue to go for. Even with that match with Leo Rush, while fighting a guy, was still interacting with the kids and interacting with them, and I'm sure that's a little bit why WWE liked her to begin with. But if they were to make something like that, an intergender match, Kayden could be queen of that.
Mm-hmm. It would be cool if WWE actually maybe created a title for the intergender title where a male or female could win. If they were ever to do anything like that, it would probably stay with NXT.
Right.
I would love it. I would be on board for it. I've seen plenty of intergender matches. I actually saw my first one when I went to Primetime Wrestling back in early March, like a week before this lockdown, stuff started, and it was a really fun experience, honestly. It's just the issue is just how society would look at it. They would look at it as promoting, domestic violence. People are just unfortunately very sensitive these days, and they wouldn't look at it as, just two people just wrestling. And obviously we all know it's, the matches are fixed. It's, they're not really fighting each other. It's one thing if back in the gladiator days when you put two people, it's wrestling, but it's just people, just the society. I think it's more so they don't want their kids watching it and then thinking it's okay for a male and a female to fight. It's just, at the end of the day, it's how society will look at it. And then their sponsors, that's one thing that some people don't think about. Their sponsors can be very strict about what they do, and at the end of the day, their sponsors pay them. That's part of the profit that they make, and as a company you kind of have to abide by that. I mean, if I were WWE, I would get sponsors that would be okay with that, but I guess the ones they have pay more. I'm not, like we mentioned last night on Heel Heat podcast, that we don't know what goes on behind these doors and the financial situation and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it is a business. We do see intergender interactions here and there. Like we saw Nia Jax in the Royal Rumble last year, which was I was surprised. I mean, she took a beating at the end with the 619 Dolph Ziggler super kick and then the RKO. a few years ago they did Becky Lynch versus James Ellsworth, so they've done it, but it's very rare.
Very toxic. So like it's something to consider. I think if we're gonna, if NXT wants to continue the talk about being progressive and being the new age of wrestling, and not just NXT, I mean AEW as well, if be the future. I mean, you got to look at futuristic concepts. So like, not just sticking to what's been done, every year, and looking at, could society be uncomfortable with it? Sure, but we also know that Nia Jax, that fight, I mean, that continues to be talked about, and WWE thrives off of being talked about.
Yes,
so,
they do.
And it's like, it may be uncomfortable, but your sponsor doesn't stop paying you when Nia hit the guy, and it just. And then if your sponsors are not moving with the times, maybe think about, why are they your sponsors, and is the money really worth it to be stagnant?
Exactly. Because I mean, intergender wrestling has always been popular in the indies, but it was actually starting to make some noise and impact with Tessa Blanchard. That has, and I thought when that was all going on, like, this might actually start opening the doors, for them doing it, like in WWE and all that. But unfortunately, with this situation with Tessa Blanchard, I haven't heard anything about her lately, actually. Speaking of that, I know she won the title and then things just kind of died down. But, like, I was really looking at that situation as, WWE doing this, because there's been plenty of times where Impact or even AEW has done stuff and WWE has mimicked it. If something is getting over in another promotion, 9 times out of 10 WWE will try it too. I mean, when that whole Matt Hardy, that weird match, what was it called he did with Jeff Hardy at the Hardy compound or whatever? That's bothering me now. I think it was like the deletion match or whatever. But WWE ended up doing almost the exact same thing with the Wyatt family and the New Day. Mm-hmm. So they saw how over that got, and they did that like a month or two later. Even like supposedly AEW did something cool with their camera angles when this whole zero crowd arena thing started, and WWE did it like the next week. So I mean, they notice when something is getting over in another company. They notice it, and they usually try it. And I was kind of thinking that maybe that was going to be the case with this intergender wrestling thing,
right?
But they obviously haven't done it, and we haven't. Since that whole hype has died down, it's like kind of like losing hope. I think it would be cool at the end of the day. I just don't ever see it being a regular thing.
And maybe it's not a regular thing. Maybe it's like a pay-per-view thing. Maybe it's just something that is done occasionally.
Yeah.
Because I remember when they used to do mixed tag team matches on Facebook Live, and WWE did that for a while. It wasn't like the next big huge thing, by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something different that they were trying out. So, they've done it before.
Yeah.
And it may have not been completely man on woman, but, it was a tag team where, men come in, come out, women come in, and then women go out. So maybe, something like an extension of that.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty cool idea in general, like live streaming wrestling on social media. Like, I thought that was kind of, and I feel like it will be the future, like seeing stuff like that. Supposedly, before they made that deal with SmackDown on Fox, I think like Facebook even offered WWE like a contract, to have SmackDown on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I was actually kind of on board with that idea. Like, it would be different watching it from your phone, but I feel like we're moving, in the future of things and just kind of finding other ways to watch wrestling and stuff like that would be pretty cool.
Right.
But kind of like, going back to Kayden Carter and all, like I definitely think I could see her being someone who could do the intergender matches and the kind of get that, the kind of maybe like also like, lead the way with that. Like Leo Rush was in WWE and they could have, done that match. We don't know if he was one of the ones who was released or furloughed, so they could bring him back. But there's plenty of wrestlers she could do with. She could do with Cedric Alexander. That would be fun. Ricochet. I think it would even be fun seeing her do it with Adam Cole.
Right.
I mean, like
that happened. And even if it's people like in NXT, because you had mentioned, to your point, she didn't need to jump around. She can build her brand in NXT, and honestly, it's not like we're gonna see a different Kayden.
Yeah.
Promotion, like for Raw, for example, when she did her debut on Raw, it was very interesting to see that Leo Rush fight from like 3 years ago to her fight with Asuka this year. It still feels like the same Kayden. Nothing's been dumbed down, nothing's been changed, nothing's softer, nothing's prettier. And not in the sense of like, polished like WWE is. It's like it's still 100% Kayden, and I respect a lot of that. And it was in her jump to Raw, or I don't really say jump, but like that first match on Raw, it was meant to be a squash a bit, but like it didn't feel like that. She fought Charlotte Flair again. Like this is now in our no crowd days. Fighting Charlotte, still very entertaining. I mean, it doesn't seem like there would be any change, good or bad, if obviously not bad, if she doesn't need to jump. She could fight someone like Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Fight someone like, and they could get silly with it. They could really get kind of like in depth with it and be like, you can go up against Tommaso Ciampa. Like you can get silly, and I think, sometimes you find some really good gems when you just kind of step out of the box for a minute, and it is definitely an out-of-the-box girl. Definitely alternative, definitely, play with fire with her.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I like when WWE takes chances and they do, new things. Even if it doesn't work out, at least you could say, hey, they tried. There's been plenty of things they've done that I just thought was, hey, this clearly didn't work out, but they're trying, and that's good. Instead of just doing the same thing and just being repetitive and predictable, it is nice seeing them do different things, and that would be a cool idea to do with Kayden. She's proven to do it, and with her having that unique look, I feel like they could, start doing some unique things with her in the ring, wrestling other men or just anything. Like if you're going to open up the box and play with fire, why not with Kayden? She seems like the kind of would, be down for that.
I think she's hungry for a challenge, and like you had mentioned, having the potential to be an NXT champion. I think, like, what do you think would be what would you foresee that journey looking like for her? Because she may be NXT forever, nothing wrong with that, but for her to be NXT champ, what do you think like her fights would need to look like as someone like her, someone so different, so unique?
They would need to tell a good story. She's the underdog story because she's smaller too. I feel like they're already doing it if that were the case, and they want to put her up there because she's been losing. And that's the thing, is that's the underdog story, because no one believes that she would do it because she has more losses than wins. And they can start building that story where she's getting frustrated, she's motivated, she wants to prove everyone wrong. Then she starts climbing. She gets, just a regular mid-card win. And then she just kind of starts winning some more matches. She gets that momentum, and it's like, hey, I want Charlotte. I want this championship, then you have one of the higher ups or even Charlotte can come out herself and say, hey, you haven't established yourself enough. You're not ready, yada, yada, yada. She goes through more challenges because that's kind of what they did with Bailey. Way it was more of her wanting to prove that she could be the best. She went through Charlotte. She went through Becky, and then she had the match with Sasha. So I want to see her kind of go through some of the top players in NXT. It would be cool, and definitely to have a number one contender match, like in some way, shape, or form. They could put her in a number one contender match against Rhea Ripley. She's the former champ, and it would be good for it to be like a pretty long match.
I agree.
Even if it can even be kind of random too. They could put her in a ladder match or something like that. I don't know, just something. It could be a fatal 4-way or something like that. She could win, and they could build the story that way. And you were talking about chances. Her challenging and beating Charlotte is taking a chance because of the fact that she has only had so much exposure. We don't know how over she really is, especially now without there being a crowd. You're not going to get the pops. You're not going to see the crowd reactions. So it's a chance. But if you're going to take a chance, why not? Because we already know Io's already established. Candice is established. Dakota's pretty much established. Why not take a chance and build someone else? Because then you could, all these other established women in NXT, you could start kind of throwing them around Raw and SmackDown and kind of helping freshen things up because they could use a nice, change of pace with the women's roster on Raw and SmackDown. And there's so much depth in NXT where you could do that, and you could put Rhea and Candice, Dakota, put them on, Raw and SmackDown, and then kind of have some of these other women, because there's a lot of other women in NXT that just don't get enough TV time that are really good. Xia Li, I really like her. Santina Garrett, also another wrestler I really like. I'm trying to think who else is down there in NXT. Even Shotzi Blackheart. There's plenty of women you could build this roster around, that just aren't really, your typical people. Because for the longest time, it's been literally the same women in NXT getting the spotlight: Dakota, Io, Candice, Rhea, and Bianca for the longest time. Now she's on Raw, which I'm very happy for. So it's like I think it's time, to start utilizing these other women. And I just feel like Kayden's the girl. Like, she's the one I want to see. She fits the NXT mold, and and that's the thing. NXT has always been its own identity, and it's because they book the wrestlers that you wouldn't, that aren't your traditional kind of champs. Like Kevin Owens was champion. He wasn't your typical protege when it comes to your top stars. Same thing with Sami Zayn, and Ember Moon was the women's champion at one point. Rhea Ripley, she's not your typical model looking female. Like, I want to see them continue to be what they've always been. It's the brand that caters to the hardcore fans. They focus on the wrestling. They're simple. And I want them to establish Kayden there, and then kind of go from there. Will she ever go to Raw and SmackDown? I don't know, but I would love to see her go to Raw and SmackDown and be successful. I will say that, but I want to see her become established first in NXT.
Right.
Which is what they did with Bianca. They established her in NXT. She didn't need to win the championship to do it, and now she's on Raw doing her thing. So it's kind of like establish her first. With NXT starting to get more popular, it's on live TV now. You can, establish wrestlers there and then bring them to Raw and SmackDown, and they'll have more of a chance to have success. Because I'll say, like, back in 2013 when the Shield debuted, I did not know who any of those wrestlers were. If they were in NXT now and came up as the Shield, they would get a big pop. People would know who they are. I didn't know who Big E was when he debuted. I didn't know who trying to think. I didn't know who the Nexus were. when they were doing their thing too. So it's like NXT's, such a big thing. When these wrestlers debut, people know who they are and they get these pops. Kevin Owens had a pop when he came out. Adam Cole, he had a pop when he, came out in the Royal Rumble 2 years ago. Like these wrestlers, these NXT stars are getting pops now because people know who they are. And in NXT, now that they're, ever since October, they've been on live TV. They're only going to get more established. And, like I said, they've been doing a good job of giving it that mainstream attention through with the main roster pay-per-views. And Charlotte Flair going down to NXT is also going to help give it more attention. She's, a future Hall of Famer. She's in NXT now. People are going to want to see what she's doing in NXT, and that would be good for Kayden. If Kayden can dethrone Charlotte Flair and become the new champion, that would do wonders for her career.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they moved someone like Charlotte down. I don't want to say down, but moving Charlotte to NXT to maybe help build that division. Because to your point, there are a lot of people on the roster that we just don't see. And and for me personally, I don't personally think you always need someone from the red brand or the blue brand to go to NXT. Because again, WWE can build stars. They can do it. It's about whether or not they want to or not. If they really wanted to push Kayden, if they really wanted to push, Mercedes, someone like Mercedes, someone like Kayden, someone like all these people, like Io, like they had to do the work to push Io. They had to do the work to push Candace. They didn't just kind of fight the right people or say the right things. There is a corporate hand in it, and sooner that I think people kind of also accept that there has to be that perfect storm, to understand that they do have a say in who goes to the top and who does not. So it just, for me, it's just kind of like, what else really does Kayden need to do? Like, I guess for me, that's where my question lies.
Sometimes it's just doing what you're supposed to do and you'll just get it. Like Dakota Kai, she was in the same position for a while. She was, jobbing and losing all the time to women, and now look where she's at. Sometimes it's just timing, Ember Moon was doing nothing but live events. She was not on NXT television at all for a whole year before she even got television time. It's just, like I said, it's timing. It's when it's your time. They have plans for other people and they want to, execute them plans first. And then it's a rotation, basically. It's like, they have the people they want to push. And then I think at the end of the day, NXT is still going to be that brand where they're going to kind of get you ready for Raw and SmackDown. I know we've seen there's clearly a lot of people there that could go to Raw and SmackDown and be successful, Undisputed Era being one of them. But they're also trying to build the brand too and, kind of do things like that. But I still think that NXT is still going to be that brand where they're still going to develop, your, talent and to kind of put them on that mainstream pedestal. But then at the same time, it also depends like where NXT goes to. If NXT starts getting just as popular as Raw and SmackDown, then we may not see it. Things may not be like that. It just depends on what goes on in the future. But yeah.
So we have to just see, I think. Yeah. And continue to hope that she continues to get the attention that she very well deserves. Because it seems to have worked out for others.
Exactly.
Ember and Dakota, Rhea, and the people even on Raw and SmackDown, you gotta start somewhere. So.
Exactly. Not everyone comes into the business and just immediately gets pushed. It's doing your time, and part of it is just also it's stuff that we don't see, how you carry yourself backstage. We've also, another thing we mentioned on the Heel Heat podcast, like there's wrestlers who have poor attitudes, and and it's just like at a job, like if you're a manager and one of your employees wants to get promoted, are you going to promote them if they just have a poor attitude, they don't get along with everyone else? Same thing applies in wrestling and with these wrestling promotions. So I mean, as long as Dakota, as long as Kayden, because we're just talking about Dakota, but as long as Kayden Carter is, going out there, she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's putting on the good match. She's carrying herself well backstage. She'll be fine. Same thing with Candice. She wasn't, doing much for the longest time other than just being Johnny Gargano's wife. Now she's also being featured heavily. It may be another year before Kayden, gets into a big story and becomes featured, but I feel like if she does what she needs to do, she will, because she has everything, and there's nothing more than I want to see right now in NXT than to see her succeed. So we'll just have to wait and see. And like you said, she deserves the spotlight, and that's why we're doing the spotlight episode. Because that's what I like to do with this podcast. I like to give a spotlight and attention to women wrestlers who just straight up deserve it. Whether you're in NXT, WWE, the Indies, that's what this show is all about. And that was a big reason why I was really high on doing this episode, because I really want to do, and give her the spotlight. And I want to do it now, because I feel like more than ever, like, these wrestlers really need it. And they're going through, a tough time too with, COVID-19. And, I think, this, and any positive attention they get from their fans, I'm sure they really appreciate it, whether they actually acknowledge it or not. I do know that they really do appreciate it. Just so yeah, that's what
to respond to on Twitter. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else?
No.
We can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we said everything that we had written in our notes and more, so that's always good. I mean, we dedicated a good hour and a half to a little over an hour and a half to this episode, which is great. Like I said, there was a lot that we had to say about Kayden, so and we got it out. So hopefully that this hopefully that a lot of people see this and, kind of start putting more attention, towards her, and hopefully she actually, watches this too. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, or retweet it. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, because I've done a few spotlights, and from my knowledge, I don't know if any of them seen it. So that's always cool knowing that they seen it, because I know with those wrestling girls, they did a spotlight on Naomi, and she actually listened to it and tweeted them about it. So that that was pretty cool seeing that, and that would be really dope if Kayden saw this and especially if she hey if she mentions like hey, I would love to be on the show one day. I'd be like, yes.
That would be amazing. You can finally get your shirts.
Yeah, and if she at least has some old shirts laying around from her indie days and she wants to sell them to me, I would definitely buy them. Or 8x10s.
Too.
Or if she has wristbands too. That seems to be a popular thing for the indie wrestlers to sell. But yeah, I think that wraps everything up. You don't have anything else you want to add?
No, I think we have said, everything from our notes and more, and that's really all you can ask for. It's always a good podcast when you can go off script. So
yeah.
It's been a pleasure, as it always is. So.
Always, yep. And for everyone who listened to this episode from its entirety, thank you so much. I know an hour and a half is a long time to dedicate to an episode. So, yeah, thank you all for tuning in to O-Face Wrestling. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and then also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And you all have a great night. And same to you, Bree, and thank you again for making your 4th appearance on O-Face Wrestling.
I'm so glad to be a part of it. So yeah, everyone stay safe. Wash your hands and just we will get through this together. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.